Next up is Pledge of Allegiance. Do we have anybody here that's helping out?
Take it away.
Just us.
I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Next up on our list is consent agenda. I think everybody's had a chance to review the minutes from the last two meetings. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda. So moved. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Dr. Frazier, recognitions.
Ms. Britt, which mic am I using? This one?
How about this?
This one?
We got the little ones. We got two mics.
I got a lot going on here.
We got a third one coming at you.
Good evening, school board members and guests. This evening, I will have the following recognition. So this month, we have celebrated Read Across America Day, School Maintenance Workers Appreciation Day, International Women's Day, School Social Worker Week, National School Breakfast Week, National Reading Month, National Athletic Training Month, Women's History Month, Youth Art Month, National Nutrition Month, Music in Our Schools Month, and Severe Weather Awareness Month.
That's ironic.
That was very, very appropriate with our storm yesterday.
Yes.
We are also proud to celebrate our all-state musicians. So at the middle school level, we have Jayden Ballard, Gracie Hart, Maggie Lindsay, Avery Otto, and Aiden Niles. Peyton Roach and Lucy Vincent were also selected as alternates. At the high school level, we had Ariana Adams, Martin Billups, Ruby Kate Vincent, Molly Vincent, and Caleb Sanders. We are all very excited and thrilled to recognize the cast and crew of the musical, Fiddler on the Roof. It was an amazing performance. I hope everyone had the opportunity to go to the musical last week. I was there opening night, and it was definitely a treat. Last week, we also celebrated and recognized Quinn Agnew, who was recognized by the Tri-Rivers Kiwanis Club as the Teenager of the Year. And we are very proud to recognize Hedley Bowis, who is our indoor track state champion.
Yeah.
And so we are proud and pleased with all of those recognitions. At this time, we'll call on Ms. Goodwin and Dr. Bird to give their student and then staff RISE awards for this month.
You want to start with students?
Students?
Okay. Good evening, Chairman Evans, Vice Chair Sturts, members of the board, Dr. Frazier. This is becoming one of my favorite events of the month, getting to celebrate deserving students and staff with you in our community. We're proud to recognize a deserving kindergarten student as our RISE Student Award winner. Teachers nominated Noah Rudder for being a good example of our RISE values. Noah has positive relationships. He's kind to his classmates and a good friend to his peers. He listens to directions the first time. Noah demonstrates innovation through his creativity and ability to problem solve in the classroom. And Noah demonstrates excellence by being extremely hardworking and puts forth his best effort in his assignments. He embodies the Pointer Promise each day, and we're proud to have Noah as a West Point Pointer.
Awesome.
And we're going to move on to staff. We are proud to recognize Ms. Lindsay Harrell as our RISE staff member for the month of March. Ms. Harrell serves as our STEAM teacher. She is not only a valuable member of the specials team at West Point Elementary, but also a supportive member of our Pointer family in West Point Public Schools. She embodies each part of our RISE core values in her dedication and support of school and division initiatives. Ms. Harrell has positive relationships with students and staff from preschool to seniors. She can communicate and build rapport with our youngest students in STEAM class, all the way up to the high schoolers in the theater department. Ms. Harrell is innovative in her use of upcycling materials and creating costumes and designing elaborate scenes to entertain our students in our school showcase and transforming the Fine Arts Center stage to another land for the plays and performances. She spent spends countless hours designing sets and props. Her creation of the horse for Sleepy Hollow was just amazing. If you've ever seen Miss Harrell in our morning car line, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Her costumes are over the top in the very best way. Come by and check out her Charlotte's Web, our Virginia Reads One Book display. It has, Miss Sweet was able to see it. It has a barn, animals, and its very own West Point spider web and a real-life Charlotte.
Yes.
Who is locked safely in the case. Student-centered and excellence go together for this example. What I've enjoyed most about working with Ms. Harrell this year is that when she says, I'll do it, or I've got that, I know without a doubt that she does, and it will be done well. She holds herself to high standards, and the final project will be excellent. A recent example of this is when she committed to participating in the Division Art Show this year. While art class looks different in elementary school, she sees all pre-K to 5th grade students and only for 45 minutes a week, so that's very different than secondary. She was able to bring a fantastic display of student art for last month's show. She brings out the best in our students' creativity, not only teaching the art skill, but allowing students to express themselves and put their own spin on the design to have a final project that brings both pride to the students and joy to others seeing it on display. Her teammates shared that Ms. Harrell is always fun and has innovative ideas and exciting lessons for her students. And one of the things I admire most about her is how incredibly talented she is, yet she remains humble. She quietly does amazing things every day and never seeks the spotlight. She goes above and beyond for her students across the division and does so with such grace that sometimes people don't realize how much she's doing behind the scenes. Her fun outfits and sense of humor lift both faculty and staff up every day. So thank you for the opportunity to recognize Ms. Harrell.
That's awesome. Yes.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to recognize we have 2 middle school students and 2 high school students this month for you. First, we have 8th grader Peyton Morris. Peyton was nominated by one of her teachers for demonstrating excellence. Her teachers say she listens, pays attention, participates in class, stays on track, and loves to ask questions and offer help to her teachers. They are very grateful to have her as part of the 8th grade class. We also have 7th grader Ainsley Pfeiffer. Ainsley was nominated for being student-centered and for demonstrating excellence. Recently, Ainsley saw a peer in need, and instead of laughing or calling attention to the student, she quietly approached the peer, provided him with support and care, and made sure that his needs were met in the classroom. She was incredibly mature and kind, and her care is noticed by those around you. She also extends that to staff and to her principal. She's one of the students who will stop me in the hallway and genuinely want to know how I'm doing and how the teachers are doing. She's just very kind and caring with everyone she meets. So we appreciate Ainsley and all that she brings to our school. At the high school level, we have senior Lena Sanders. Lena was nominated for being student-centered and for responsibility. She recently saw something that caused her to be concerned about a peer and reported it quickly. And it was exactly what we hope for all of our students to do, and we're thankful for her maturity and care. You know, we train our students to see something and say something and see something and say something. And Lena did that, and it just led to another student getting the help and the services that they need because she was paying attention and it mattered to her. So we appreciate her. And also freshman Waylon Christensen. Waylon was nominated by one of his teachers for being student-centered and building relationships with his peers. Waylon's teacher said he had a great impact on helping a student who was new to the class, helping them get adjusted to classroom procedures and assignments. Being new in school is tough, and we've had quite a few new students recently. So he just kind of took them by the hand, showed them the ropes, and helped them out. So we appreciate Waylon and all that he does for students as well. And he had a pretty amazing green costume today too. So. Our staff member of the month, I just want to say that we all appreciate I'm going to kind of give this away. I usually leave you all hanging till the end. But we appreciate the fact that this division believes in keeping school nurses. So Connie South is our staff member of the month. Students love her. She is many students at school mom. She frets and worries about everybody, literally. She will hound you for all kinds of things. She is concerned about students, staff. If you come in and even staff, Connie, I don't feel good. She's on you. Let's take your blood pressure. Let's take your temperature. Let's get you situated. And in an emergency, there is no one I'd rather have around than Miss South. If you get to see her, please ask her about a relay we had at one emergency last year. We found out how fast Connie South can run. And I think Headley is the only kid in the building who can beat her because that lady's fast. And so we just appreciate, number one, y'all's support for having school nurses. And we have fabulous school nurses. Connie is the best, and we can't do without her. So thank you.
So, Mr. Chair and members of the board, those are all the recognitions that I have for this month.
Thank you so much. As always, we're proud of our students and proud of our staff. Moving on, we have presentations, mid-year data review. Looks like we have a team presenting tonight. Ms. Britt, Dr. Bird, and Ms. Goodwin. Whoever wants to go first.
Oh, y'all all come up.
Not just the team, that's it.
It's a team effort up
Don't
here.
be shy.
Good evening. So we are going to talk with you tonight about the mid-year data review. Last year, you got it a little bit earlier because the growth assessment, the fall growth assessment was in August. This year, they pushed it to October. So we just finished up winter growth assessments, believe it or not. And so now you're getting the data fresh. So as we review this data, it's important that we continue to match our goals and purpose to our strategic plan. Our goal is to increase reading and math performance for all students, to improve teaching efficacy, and to collaborate with each other at the schools and division level in the best interest of our students. A couple of reminders as we look at the framework of these assessments. As you know, these are state mandated and given to all students in grades 3 through 8 for both math and reading. They're in the same format as an SOL, but they're a shorter form. And they are computer adaptive tests that change questions based on students' responses. This means that the questions adjust in difficulty, even pulling questions from above and below grade level. The important thing to remember is that the changing content between assessments. In October, the fall assessment looked backward and measured how well students retained the previous year's content with standards from the previous year. But in February, the winter assessment shifts to current grade level standards. Winter tests question content that the VDOE identifies as first semester content through a sampling of other divisions' pacing guides. Teachers are given the blueprints in advance, but sometimes pacing locally does not match with the flow that an experienced teacher has established for their instruction and the specific needs of their students at that time. When we look at the scaled score data, students fall into one of 3 categories: needs additional support, at risk of falling behind, or generally well prepared. Even though the standards shift from previous year to current year, the vertical cut scores of these categories stay the same as you see on your parent report sample that you guys have at your desk. So you can see down at the bottom the 3 categories, and the scaled scores are those numbers underneath. They don't change from fall to winter, even though the content is different. Analysis of the detailed student detail by question report, which is the second page in the handout that you've been given, is also performed to identify class-wide and individual strengths and weaknesses. For the most part, this report is given to the teacher, and data sheets are updated within 24 hours of testing so that instruction can be immediately adjusted. We also keep in mind that a single test score is never the full story. In data meetings, an individual teacher reflection of a complete picture of a child's progress, we cross-reference these scores with teacher input, students' daily classwork, parent input, and report cards. These reports show us the exact skills we need to reinforce in order to ensure they are ready for the spring. So I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Goodwin, who is going to go over elementary data.
Thank you. So I'm going to share or go over information not just for the mid-year growth that Ms. Britt just talked about, but also the VALS, the literacy screener. We used to call that PALS. We're going to do that first. That's for actually pre-K. We have data on here for kindergarten, but all the way to 3rd, and then our 4th and 5th graders do take it if they did not pass the rest of the year before. So just to showcase a little bit of our winter VALS data, if you look at kindergarten, we had about 5% of our students qualify under high risk. That means high risk of having a reading disability or reading concern. We did, one student moved in at high risk and stayed high risk, and 2 students actually moved down to mid moderate risk. And then in 1st grade, 1 student moved to high risk from moderate risk. Another student moved in the district as high risk, and then 1 student moved down from high risk to moderate. So that's the direction we want them to go. So for the mid-year growth, when I talk about that slide, we want those students to move up. For VALS, we want them to move down. We want them to move out of that high risk band to the lower risk band. And then in 2nd grade, we had 1 student move from moderate to high, and then 3 students we celebrated move from high risk to moderate risk. Those students will keep their student reading plan and their interventions that we have in place, but we were happy to celebrate that. And then 3rd grade stayed very consistent. All 3 students made progress within their subtest, but they remained high risk. So the other important thing to know is that the words or the sounds or the skills that they are assessed on in the fall, they increase in difficulty for winter, so it's not exactly comparing apples to apples. Mm-hmm. It's not spelling the same types of words. The words are significantly harder. And then we will test again in the spring, and that too will be a different set of words and skills, and so it increases in difficulty. We do monitor progress every 2 weeks for those students that have student reading plans as well. And then for 4th and 5th grade, those students, we are showing their spelling subtest here, and then their word reading, they have to read a list of words. 4th grade, just the scoring's just a tad bit different. But in 4th grade, we screened 33 students in the fall, and 26 needed screening at mid-year. And in 5th grade, we screened 24 and 21 students in mid-year. And then these students will not be screened in the spring. They will take their SOL in place of that. So we had some celebrations. They made lots of growth under spelling. You can see, like, take a look at that 5th grade. We had 14 in the fall, and at mid-year, only 8 needed, and we went down in word reading as well. I believe you might recall I shared about using megawords, a new intervention. I really feel strongly that that's helping for some of them. All right, our growth assessments. Just give me a second to look at that. They are one piece of information, but they're very helpful to us. We use that student detail by question reports very closely. We look at that with our teachers in our data meetings. And we really feel like we look at, when we put our scores up, we look to see, are there surprises there? Are there students that we expected to do better that didn't? What are we doing to support those students? Is, you know, what's not expected is a big question that we like to answer. And then we talk a lot about pacing, and we use our blueprints to see, let's look at what we have left in the year to cover. If students did not perform well, is that because we haven't taught that skill? You're going to especially see that in the area of math, because some of the things they just haven't covered yet. We want to highlight our third grade reading. We were very pleased with the number of students moving from needs support and at risk who moved up to well prepared. And in third grade, we saw similar movement in math. And then in fourth grade, we really celebrated the number moving forward, that forward movement from at risk to well prepared. And then in math, this shows that there are standards that are yet to be covered, which our teachers have already planned for. We spent a lot of time, for example, in fifth grade and hit like the number and number sense and the computation and estimation strands. We've hit those very heavily. And so we have some smaller standards as they're a little quicker to get through with geometry and some algebra things that are still yet to be covered. So when we look at those results, it's did we cover the things and what still needs to be reviewed. So we have intervention going. We're going to continue with our reading plans. We have Afternoon Academy. The halls are just abuzz with that this time of the year. And that really started a while back. We didn't wait till we got these results. We teachers know we have enough other data to know where we need to be, but they're tweaking and making adjustments. We also have regular data and PLC meetings where we're looking at those things. We had our monthly Title I goal meeting today for second grade and got to spend some time celebrating with them. We've also had a little time with a math specialist to help support fifth grade because we knew that was an area of concern, and she spent a lot of time with our fifth grade math teacher unpacking curriculum, making sure that we're aligned, working on some assessments, and some really, I feel like, formative assessments, things that she can take away with her at the end of a lesson or at the end of the week to plan her instruction for the next week. We feel those things have been helpful. Turn it over to you.
Thank you. So, we're looking at basically the same types of assessments used at the elementary school. Last year I left that bullet up there. We were looking at the need for a universal screener, particularly at the middle grades. Instituting VALS has helped with that in the area of reading. We're still talking about that with math. But again, looking at the growth assessments for the middle grades, for our upper grades, looking at their semester benchmarks and the data that those tests and assessments have for us as we look forward to the SELs. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to jump in here. We see movement in the need support area. We see where things are going down. But to me, that's very cautionary because the fall assessments were on last year's content and the winter assessments are on this year's content. So when we look at in every grade level in each category, this year's content, there are some areas of concern, particularly when students who are generally well prepared. So what we did in February after the test is we met by department, because we need to drill down and find out what's going on. So the student detail by question reports are really where the meat of the data exists. So when we compare those to pacing guides, those teachers had to bring out your pacing guides, bring out the student detail by question. What was covered, what has been covered thus far in the year, and so how did the students do on those questions? Because in math in particular, there's sections of the winter growth assessment that haven't been taught yet because they're not teaching it in the order that the DOE was testing. So from that, one of the things, and some really good discussions have come out of this, departments were led in some PLC discussions. So professional learning communities by structure have very specific targets and questions. So myself, Ms. Ball, Ms. Gay, and Dr. Hauser led the 4 departments in these discussions because it really centers around, number one, what data are you looking at? Do you know how do you know that students are mastering the standards that you have taught? And if you don't know, why don't you know? That's another question that was very pointed and asked. Because we need to know, like, we do use classwork, we do use homework, but my message to the staff is this: classwork and homework don't assess the standard at the cognitive level. A lot of times classwork and homework is the behavioral grade. Did you do it? Are you organized? I want to know, how do you know that these students are achieving the benchmark the SOL standards? And so normalizing the conversation with them. High school is a little bit different than elementary school. Elementary school is really data heavy and they're masters at that. High school teachers sometimes choke a little bit on that, but we have to sit in the room and talk about kids in terms of, are they mastering grade level standards? Are they not? Are they exceeding them? What are we doing for the kids who are going above and beyond, and what are we doing for the kids who are not there yet? So several things have come out of those discussions. Number one, we're continuing our focus this year on 8th block remediation. So you might hear some chatter from parents, but the teachers in the core areas have been tasked with creating remediation plans that are due to me before spring break, focusing on two things. Number one, who are the students who need to be targeted? What's their name? Who are they? Number two, what strands from your student detail by question were they weak on? Create a plan for your 8th period remediation to spiral those back in during 8th period. So as an outgrowth of that, I'm also working with some staff. A lot of kids use 8th period for just help me finish my work. That's a different problem. So we're going to establish, here's where you can do your work completion, you need help with your homework, you weren't sure of something, but remediation is very specific, it's very targeted, and that's what has to happen the remainder of the year. So their plans are due to me before spring break, because I'll be sending out the communication to parents that these sessions are required, not optional. I have reviewed with staff what research-based remediation instruction looks like. You know, it's not a repeat of the day's lesson. If they didn't get it the first time, they're not going to get it the same way. And really targeting those strands where we found weaknesses in growth assessments or in benchmark assessments. Another thing, I may be jumping the gun, Dr. Frazier, but we did ask for departments over the summer to have department SOL-based assessments. It's really hard in a small school if you're the only history teacher teaching 9th grade. You know, bigger schools, you have a department assessment, the department or the specialist creates. So we need to go back to creating those reliable assessments so a teacher can walk in. You know, I told them, I want you to be able to walk in and say, Laurel Bird is not meeting grade level standards on these strands, and I know this because. So we're really honing in on those kinds of things. So remediation 8th block is going to be a big thing for us following spring break in particular, to make sure that students are getting that stuff spiraled back in, they have those foundational skills, and it's highly targeted. So I'm excited to see that there have been some really robust discussions about what that looks like going forward, but you just know that it's a required thing. That's what we're going to do. So we also have activated, and this is on another slide, but I'm just right there in the flow. We've activated Ms. Upshaw to do some instructional coaching at certain grade levels and in certain areas to take a deeper dive. You know, if instruction is being delivered, what do the extension activities look like? What does independent practice look like? Are those parts of a lesson on par with the cognitive level of a standard? So really taking a look at a classroom level at some of the things going on so that we can ensure that our students are getting the cognitive level needed. So that's kind of, we have some other things going on, but that kind of all fits together, what you'll see. Our VALS data, so similar to 4th and 5th grade, what you'll see with us is We're having some good movement. So just so you know, we have, I think it's 38 reading plans, grades 6 through 8. It's 38 students with reading plans. So we have some good news up here in our screeners. You'll see some 6th graders have made improvements. Some 7th graders have. At 8th grade, we had a student move in with a reading plan who's getting some interventions. And the same thing trending in the word reading subtest. Several of these students also attend the enhanced language class, which is taught by a certified reading specialist, so they are getting highly targeted reading interventions in addition to their English class. So I think we're seeing some good things happening there. So some of the other things that we have shaken. So I told you about the remediation plans and spiraling content. One of the things that we've been talking about a lot, especially with middle schoolers, is are we explicitly teaching test-taking strategies? There are strategies that need to be taught. And so Ms. Britt and I are working together on some test-taking strategies that all teachers can use. I don't want there to be 500 different strategies going around. Like, let's identify the main ones so everybody in the building is teaching these, using these, it becomes common. Conquering test anxiety is actually a really big thing, especially at the middle level. And Brain Gym, so I don't know if you're familiar with Brain Gym. Brain Gym is a way for students, especially in high stress situations, and it's good for adults too, go Google it, to reconnect your mind and your body. So for example, there are certain things that students can do while they're sitting in a test if they're feeling anxious and overwhelmed, to take a break and reconnect their mind and their body so that they can calm down and focus on their test. So I'm pretty excited about this one. I've used this before to great success, but our PE teachers will be teaching these strategies to our 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So our thought here too is before they go into the test, to have the PE teachers come in and run them through their Brain Gym to remind them of things that they can do. I will tell you this as an adult, doing this on your collarbone when you're stressed out is a strategy to help you reconnect your mind and body and calm down. That's one of them. But there's some other cool stuff you can do. So everybody,
We're all gonna have like
so if you see somebody go like that, they're stressed. Assessment platforms and trainings. Ms. Britt is meeting with our English department to remind them and to look at making sure that our assessments are assessing what we want. Not somebody's favorite topic, but we are assessing at those benchmarks the standards to the rigor that they are written so that we have accurate information on our students and we can speak to those. The data and PLC meetings, honestly, Dr. Hauser, you've been in them, they have been really robust conversations. Getting teachers used to talking about students, their data, their performance, not how they behave, not how they're not doing their homework. Let's talk about their mastery of standards. The other end of the conversation is this too. Like, I like to challenge teachers. If you have a kid who's mastered the standards, why are you banging them over the head with all this homework and other stuff? Like, how are you moving our gifted and those students ahead? Like, has anybody ever pre-tested them and said, oh, you got it, let's move on? So this works on both ends of the spectrum. What are we doing for our students who have mastered the standard to that level? And as I said, we're going to be working on department developed benchmarks that are standards based across the board so we can speak to those standards. So a lot going on there. And I think Christy, is this you? All right.
So in assessments, we continue to promote data culture. Along with team data meetings, we have leveraged AI, maintaining student privacy with non-identifiable data as a basic, quick class-wide review to identify common weaknesses. So it's just a quick review of the student detail by question report data that was given to the teachers within 24 hours for them to review and see if it fits with what they know about their students and what they know about their content. And then also, of course, they do that deep dive with in the data meetings with their student detail by question report. In grades 3 through 8, the teachers are shifting instructional gears to prepare for SOLs by adjusting pacing to students' needs and reviewing the test blueprints. By implementing the Virginia Literacy Assessment Initiatives, teachers are addressing alignment challenges. They're working to support all students. So the alignment with the curriculum that they are required to teach in like 4th grade, that state mandated curriculum with what the alignments are asking for, so they're working hard with that. They're working to support all students and identifying the most important grade levels. And we work in groups as teams and core leadership, and we appreciate our parent and community input, and we value our board support. Any questions?
I think you answered. The only one I had was about what does that mean to prep for SOLs, and I feel like you answered that. I'm always reluctant because I'll never, not to get out of the thing, but when Jackson, my oldest, first year, 3rd grade, and I was mortified because in January they just started giving him packets, review packets, review packets, review packets, and he was bored out of his mind. He aced them all and then had nothing to do. So I didn't think that's what we were doing, but I was going to follow up. So I'm glad to hear what we actually are doing, which is good. So thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you.
And I was just going to say thank you. While obviously you pointed out we're a data culture, I appreciate that you're not treating the data just as a lagging indicator. You're using it as a leading indicator, and you're looking into why we might be trending a direction with a student and what the whole picture is. So I appreciate the data, but thank you for looking at the whole picture too. All right. Next up, we have delegations. Do we have anybody here today? Oh, we do have one. Thank you. All right, Mike Snyder. Yes. You're up. So just a quick reminder, individual is limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name, whether you're speaking as an individual or if you're on behalf of a committee or group.
Yes, my name is Mike Snyder. I am speaking on behalf of myself. First, good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you all. I'm here today both as a parent and a proud member of this community. First, I want to say this clearly. We love this school. We love the teachers, the staff, everyone who shows up every day to support our children. My son, who has special needs, has been surrounded by educators who deeply care about him, and that's been proven. They have earned our trust and our gratitude. But loving our school also means advocating for what it needs. And tonight I do need to speak with a little bit of honesty. I've seen the special education budget. Quite frankly, it's unacceptable. It does not reflect the needs of our students, nor the extraordinary work of our teachers who are already doing an incredible job with their limited amount of resources. For my son, West Point Schools is his sense of community. He cannot participate in the typical extracurricular activities as other children do. His afternoons are filled 3 to 4 times a week with outside therapies that are outside of this district. So his sense of belonging, his friendships, his identity, his confidence come pretty much entirely from the school building itself. If we want him to be truly part of the West Point community, then he needs to remain in West Point schools. He deserves to learn by his peers as every other child. At one point, I may have to answer my daughter, who may ask a question that says, why does my brother have to go to a different public school? The message we send to our students and parents matters. When special education students stay in our schools, all students learn empathy, acceptance, and the truth that differences are valued. But when students are pushed elsewhere, we teach them something unintentionally, that if you're too different, you don't belong here. If you're too different, we can't help you here. You have to go elsewhere. Investing in special education is not a luxury. It is a necessity. It strengthens outcomes for the entire student body. It retains families who want to be a part of this community, who actually lives its values. It supports our teachers and our staff who are already doing heroic work with limited resources. On a personal note, I fought to keep my family here in West Point. My job was faced with possible relocation, and we chose to stay because of this community, because of the school, because of the people, because of the staff and our educators, because we believe this is where our children belong. But I also want to be clear here. My message this evening is not just about my son. This is about every special education student who deserves to be included. This is about every parent who wants their child to belong. This is about all the teachers, therapists, aides, and staff who show up every day, day in and day out, and deserve the resources to do their jobs as well. I'm asking you to invest in them, invest in all of them, so that West Point remains a community where every child belongs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that was our only delegation. Moving on, next we have reports. Community growth data is first. Mr. Bauer, you're up.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chairman Evans, the entire board, Dr. Frazier. It's my pleasure to speak with you this evening about what we're seeing with your community. And let's see, do I get to fast forward? Excellent. All right. Great. So we have a couple different slides. This will not be a long dissertation. So this first shot talks about on the way in, I get to see 3 or 4 houses actually being in construction, and I know that there is a certain level of anxiety that often raises when we see houses going up, saying, "Oh my gosh, what is going to happen?" And sometimes there's a warmth in saying, because here's the reality: is projects don't happen overnight. Okay, so we're helping school divisions right now with modular classrooms because they 3 or 4 years ago didn't quite predict that there was going to be growth. So that's part of the reason we're here to talk. So what you are seeing some moderate growth here in the town. What this sheet shows is a compilation of different data, including information from the census, because that's a really good reliable factoid. So from 20, if you look at the top right, I don't think I can point, but if you look at the top right, from 2010 to now, we've seen a growth of about 269 folks, based off of that data. They're projecting, as we go to 2030, another 145. Now that is total number of people. That is not students. Okay. So what's important is to understand is that yes, you are seeing growth. You are seeing growth, and what's interesting is that you're going to see that the students reflect that growth. It's not, sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, where all these students come from, or hey, we're seeing all these houses going up and there's nothing coming. What this isn't making any sense. I think the data shows that it actually makes a lot of sense. So what's interesting is I'm just an architect. I'm a building guy. So a lot of this information I don't produce this. I have other really talented folks who help me with this. So they're like, wow, Josh, you're so dumb. But what's interesting is that the age of so we used to talk about birthing ages, right? Are we on all that video?
Yes.
You are.
So
You're
so
great.
I'm
You're
going to do
doing
my
good.
best
Awesome.
to keep this as PG as possible.
You're good.
So
Well, thanks for asking first.
yes. So hi, Mom. Birth rate, birthing ages. Okay, was one thing that we used to talk about. Now, what's interesting is that when the younger generation, or I guess the older generation, when they were younger, it was in the 20s. You know, was the 20s kind of your prime time, like 20 to 35. Now what we're seeing is it's getting older. So when you look at the median age and saying, well, gosh, the median age is 40, you know, so therefore most of those folks should already have like kids in middle school or high school. It's not quite exactly the data anymore. You know, so folks are you know, having children older, or when we were kids, they used to have 4. Now it went from 2 to, you know what, kids are really expensive. We don't want to have any. So so the trends are, well, I'm sorry, like it's just reality. So the data is harder. It's less consistent than it was in the past because things are changing so much, even in the last 20 years. So again, this snapshot is a great shot of your community. Talks about the median home value, renters versus owners. You know, you can see that the amount of ownership is around, between 2020 and now 2025 is about the same. It was about 76% in 2000. It's now about 74%. So it's a little tiny bit less, but it's about the same of ownership versus rentals. And you can see the median home value has increased, and they're expecting it to continue to increase as we go out to 2030. So again, this is just a really good shot to say, hey, where are we health-wise on the community? Anybody have any questions on this snapshot of your community? Anything doesn't make any sense based on what, because you know your community better than I do. I'm just trying to provide data. Okay, so let's look at historical enrollment. So any school division, is going to see ups and downs. What you can see here though is, and I actually put this graph up because you're seeing very consistent data over time. Yes, it's 775 days of time, which is around let's just say 100. Over between 2003 and now 2026. So again, it's not a drastic increase or decrease. I'm having a lot of conversations right now with a lot of school divisions in Virginia that it is doing this. There are some divisions that are growing, but the majority of them, or they've already gone through the downturn. Especially in Southwest Virginia, in 2015 when factories closed, or 2010, and guess what? If a factory closes, and the challenge is there was 3 other factories in town that supported that, and now there's no jobs. Well, folks have to go. So next thing you know, it's a catch-22, and everybody's leaving. And now they're closing schools because now high schools can become middle schools and elementary schools because they were the best taken care of schools. And we see that a lot. What's great, is that your health is fantastic. You're relatively even with a slight increase, but not a, oh my gosh, we now need to start building new schools because we're seeing so much. So again, this is simply looking at historical data. This is not projections. So does this make any sense? Does this make sense for everybody? So this snapshot is where you currently are. Dr. Leach was able. It's Dr. Leach, right?
I'll take it.
Mr.
Leach. A lot worse.
So I just got in trouble for calling somebody, instead of calling it was Mr. Leach, I'm Dr. Leach.
Oh.
Sorry.
I'll take it.
So this is a snapshot of where you currently stand as of I think 3 days ago. Looking at your current residence, the tuition, looking at your total is at around 820. This does not include pre-K. So this is K through 12. This is where it currently sits. And what's nice is you can kind of see that amongst the grades it's pretty even. Again, you're not seeing a massive bubble. Which is that's the other part of stress is when you have that kindergarten class that comes in and last class was 54, the next class coming in is 75. You're going, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? Is this going to be sustained, or is this a simple bubble? So. Now, this is important. So the national average right now, okay, so this is looking at all the states, is about 0.8 students per residential unit. Now, residential unit is everything from an apartment to a house. That is a pretty good national standard. Now, as you look at some states that are seeing huge explosive growth, Florida, Texas, South Carolina, states that people are moving to that are seeing huge, that growth is much higher. Other states, I'm not gonna say their name because I'm on video, they're seeing decline, significant declines. And so a good national average number is 0.8. I often get asked this, well, Josh, 400, housing units coming in, what should we be using? And what we really need to look at is what is your area? What is the houses versus students? Because I had just had a conversation with the city school on the western side and that they are 0.2. So 0.2, now that's a good indicator looking at their history, saying we have a new, they have 400 houses being built right now. Using that factor is a good indicator of what's going to happen. So because if we did 0.8. Now you're looking at significantly higher numbers than what is most probable for that area. So yours is around 0.5, which is good. So the national average is 0.2. Virginia is around 0.2, 0.3. So you're kind of somewhere in the middle, of looking at all of Virginia versus versus within national averages. So 0.5 is a great number. This says 0.5 persons per house. And that is based off your historical data of looking at the number of residences and the number of students. So how does this fall in projections? What we believe, based on the indicators, is that you're going to have a slight continued growth between now and 2031, 32. It's not, we don't project a large increase to where we say, oh my gosh, we need to start doing something immediately because you're not going to be able to handle the students. It could be relatively flat, but most likely it's going to be a slight increase, not a decrease, and not a huge amount of growth. Most likely, this is very probable based on what history is and looking at the units. So what we received from the town. So last year, okay. So here's another indicator. Last year there was 46 homes or housing units that were built here in 2025, and as of this year so far, 8. Have been constructed or in construction right now. They're right now projecting about 128 total, so that's including the 54, if I'm not right, the 54 that have already been constructed. So you're just about halfway there of the total amount of houses they're projecting going out to 2030. Now, what can happen is somebody else can come in, and that can change. You can have more areas that become available for housing. One other factor is maturity overturn. Okay, so as I'm a little bit on the mature side. Not personality-wise.
I was about to say.
Not personality-wise. I'm still working on my man voice. So both. I am. It's why I wear green. It's not a good thing, especially on St. Patrick's Day. On St. Patrick's Day, I'm like, oh, look at Jared Leprechaun.
That would have made our day.
See, this is why I don't get invited to meetings. So remember, I was invited. No, I don't.
Note that.
So both of my daughters are at college. So we are empty nesters. And the reality is that now what could happen is my wife and I could say, hey, we want to live in West Point and let's sell our house and move. Well, now it's gone from 0 kids, and now a family of 4 or 5 can move in, and now there's 3 kids. So that overturn is really difficult to try to get your brain around, especially as you're looking at the community maturing in age. Is that you could have that overturn, and it could be something relatively quick. My daughter, she lives in a house in Stanton, and the house that she lives in that we bought is everybody in the neighborhood is, I think the median age is around 70. So what's going to happen is that whole neighborhood in the next handful of years is going to really change over. And they're great. They're single-story ranchers. They're wonderful for young families to move in, and they can see a whole bunch of stuff going on right there in that neighborhood because everybody is mature in age. So those are things that we want to keep an eye on. Is how is that overturn happening? If you see a bunch of for sale signs, is that young families moving in? We want to make sure that we get ahead of that wave if there's going to be a wave. So again, we believe that there's going to be modest growth, looking at, between now and 2032. Now, what you're saying is, well, Josh, why only that far? Here's the other part of this, is when you're looking at projections, 5 years, you can it's pretty good to project. You can look at birth rates. You can look at there's the houses that are being built or sold. After 5 years, it really becomes a very big guess. So it's harder to say, hey, this is what could happen, because it could go way up. It could also kind of flatten off too. Same thing with the middle school, middle high school, is that it's not going to be a quite as much of a flat line growth. You can see there was a bit of growth in the 18-19 range, and then it kind of dropped down. We think it's going to be relatively flat. We're looking at that. And again, what we don't know is that the folks that are moving into the houses, most of the time they're younger families that are moving. You tend not to move middle and high school students. And so most likely it's going to be what your current grouping of students are most likely going to continue on that route. So again, this is our projections. Kind of looking at that is, again, this is good news because it means it's stable. It's not a, oh my gosh, we have a problem. So in short, the community is changing, but we don't believe rapidly. So while you're seeing the houses coming in, this should not have a major impact on student ratios. Again, long-term planning is good to plan for student growth, but we don't see a massive amount of growth from a student standpoint at this time based on the facts that we have. So five things. Again, enrollment growth is consistent with community growth. Said if you look, remember, see the community growth is going to be was a slight increase, and again the students is also the student growth was reflective of that. It's kind of also almost at the 0.5 per house. That logic continues with that. Again, this is good because it's stable. Again, having that major amount of growth or decline is not stable, and that's when folks begin to start to panic. The diversity, and when we talk about diversity, this is renting and owning. That's when we talk about the diversity of different. Is that as the community ages, it's going to slightly reduce the school age population. That as they now go into high school, the middle school, high school, and then they go into college, or they buy a house or live with their parents. Again, that's less kids in the actual neighborhood. But what happens over time, then that changes. Changes in the younger family moves in. So we do not see a spike happening at least in the 5 years, and then looking out to the 10-year mark. Again, the growth is not explosive. It's sustained. It's predictable. It's supported by the demographics. And again, we believe that our projections are pretty accurate out to 2030. So again, it's going to be growth, but it's going to be slow. Families with school-age children may be moving in, or they may start birthing kids as they move in, as they move to the house. As enrollment is rising slightly faster than the population, but for the most part, we projected it's about that same curve. So again, we see this as being a positive. This is not, as houses are going up, it often becomes, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We don't see a massive explosion in students that is going to be happening for you at least within the next 5 years. And why do I keep saying 5? The other part of that is any project, we constantly have this conversation, is Josh, how long does it take to build a new school or to build an addition? Well, honestly, it takes anywhere from 12 months to 18 months for design, and then it can take anywhere from 16 to 18 to 24 months for construction, depending on what the project is. It's if we're going to do a renovation, the challenge is, okay, well, we don't have a whole lot of space in our building. Where do we go while we're doing the renovation? So do you do a small addition? In which case, then you move everybody over. Well, that's going to take longer if you keep moving folks around. So again, as you're looking at this, as you're looking at the division in general with your buildings, what can you do to properly plan for this? Not only to address education, which obviously is an ongoing thing, but also as you're looking at it, what are we doing to make sure that we at least have the ability for the growth, the steady growth that we expect to happen? Because we don't expect it to decrease. We expect that there is going to be a modest increase over the next 5 to 10 years. So. Does all this make sense? Mm-hmm. Is this in line with what you're thinking? I said I know it can often get a little bit of anxiety when we start to see houses getting built, especially in a small community that's going to be changing.
No, I was definitely anxious. I mean, I was I don't want to say freaking out. That's a bit of an overstatement, but I was definitely like, oh my gosh, all of these houses, where are these kids gonna go? I mean, so that's, puts my mind at ease, but that doesn't mean we don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
It just means like we don't need to freak out and do something.
Right, it means you have time to plan.
Yeah.
And make the right decisions. You're not going into panic mode. We're in March. I can't tell you how many times I get phone calls right now saying, oh my gosh, we just saw our kindergarten enrollment and now we need to have 40 modulars at, where was that just at? That they, I know, I'm not gonna say where.
No,
So,
you're on camera.
they just said, like, I got called into a meeting and they said, hey Josh, can you come visit us right now? I said, okay, we need to add 4 modular classrooms this summer. I'm like, it's March, right? They said, yeah, we need to have 4 modular classrooms and, get the accessible ramps up and get, and get sanitary sewer to them. I'm like, this summer, right? You mean like, so again, you're not in that, we don't see you being in that mode, which is great because you can make good decisions, you're not in panic mode, and that means you're gonna make the wisest, best decisions for the school and also for the taxpayers.
Love it.
Any questions or comments, any thoughts?
This is great. This is so helpful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank you.
rest of your evening.
Thank you, you too.
All right, next up, winter athletic and extracurricular activities. Mr. Robinson.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I think I had to write Mr. Bauer, that's quite the act to follow.
Call us all doctor.
But good evening, thank you again for allowing me a few minutes of your time to talk with you about our athletic and activity programs over at West Point Middle and High School. I do want to thank Dr. Frazier. He had mentioned at the beginning about March being National Athletic Training Month, and certainly I'd be remiss to not take just a quick second to say thank you to Ms. Langford for all of her work and support. The medical care and the help that she provides day in and day out at our school is invaluable, and what she does for me and my mental health on a daily basis speaks volumes. But again, thank you to her, and thank you for recognizing National Athletic Training Month. You do have in front of you, I'm not going to go line by line. The first part, we do talk about our teams that participated in the winter. We did have JV and varsity boys basketball. We had varsity girls basketball. Certainly, I think Mr. Dinkins will echo that we certainly want to work and get back in the gym to where we can get our JV and our varsity girls program going again. We did have indoor track, which I certainly will expand on shortly, along with our sideline cheer, Scholastic Bowl, and our One Act. Our participation numbers overall are still pretty consistent from year to year. I think we were at 119 2 years ago. We're at 120 now. Team accomplishments. Our boys basketball team did have a good year. I think the one thing that was refreshing and nice to see when I went back and just was looking at some history and some records, our win-loss record. Now, high school sports I've never thought should be based solely on wins and losses, but it is a variable. And Coach Allen has done a really nice job because during his tenure, that win-loss record has gradually increased from year to year. So we're maybe not going quite as far as we'd like to. That win-loss record is improving, and it also shows in the participation numbers from one year to the next. And those of you that maybe didn't realize, while the boys team lost in the quarterfinals or the first round of regional, that was a game where at one point we were down by, I think, around 34, 35 points.
Wow.
And came back to cut it to 6 before eventually losing by about 10. So I just say that because I think the effort that was put forth in that second half, they could have certainly cashed it in, for lack of a better word, and they didn't. Our girls program had a great year. They were co-district Tidewater district champions with the school from the north. I'm going to pull my Urban Meyer and not mention the other school from the north while we're here at West Point.
School from the north.
So anyway, but we do commend them on their district championship. They had a really good year. They positioned themselves to host in the first round of regionals, which we beat Matthews, and then advanced to the semifinals and played against a very good Essex team that advanced further into the state tournament. So it was a very good year. Indoor track, we finished both third. Our boys finished third and the girls fifth on regionals. Our Scholastic Bowl had a fantastic season. Mr. Claver took over that activity this year, did a phenomenal job with them, finished with a record of 6-2. Sideline cheer continues to do a great job with our spirit days and our pep rallies and our one-act program. I think Ms. Hammond just now started talking to me again after spending 3 days in Charlottesville for the state competition. But again, certainly they had a magnificent year, both winning a regional and a super regional championship based on the way they're formatted. And I make a little bit of a joke with that, but I also want to thank the school system for just their guidance and support with sending them up early due to some potential weather and just helping us navigate those uncharted waters. I'll take those concerns up with the league later in the spring, because I thought that was pretty much botched with the way it was handled, but I can say that now that I'm here. Because it was. But anyway, all right, moving on. Individually, certainly want to recognize Lexi and Crochet for being named first team all-district. They did the same thing at the regional level. Anna Jenkins, if for no other reason because her father is one of our assistant coaches and he is sitting in front of me, should be recognized for making second team, both all-district and all-region. Tariq Graham continues to do a great job playing multiple sports in our school, and Ben earning second team district honors. Indoor track, certainly we can't say enough about Headley and the season she had. To have a regional competition, the regional meet where she was a champion in both the 500 and the 600 meter run, finishing second in the 1,000, and Quinn doing the same thing for the boys, being the regional champion in the 1,600. We had great participation, we had great accomplishments at the district and regional level with our sports, and then at the state, certainly had Headley headlines all of that with her state championship in the 1,600 meter. I think we can all provide her a little grace. She only finished 7th in the 500 meter and the 1,000, but I think she was probably still a little tired from the record time that she set. She actually set a state meet record with that time as a freshman. So can't applaud her enough. It was kind of funny. I spoke to her after the race. She said she blacked out halfway through it. That's not really what the AD wants to hear when you're at a state meet, but she pulled through. And our other kids, again, Quinn had a great state meet, finishing in the top 10 in 2 different events as well. And then I'll just round out. I know I mentioned this when I met with you in January, but the last page is just those student athletes earning all academic honors, which are 3.5 or higher, and certainly a shout out to those 44 individuals. I'm not going to go through those one by one, but you have the list in front of you, and certainly applaud them for putting student, emphasizing the student part of that student athlete part. But again, thank you. I will say to you, with the weather that we have, it's hard to believe that we were supposed to have started spring sports yesterday, but that's been put on hold. But because of the financial commitment that this body made with our baseball and softball fields, while we can sort of joke and snicker, our coaches, when I went outside and met with them today, looking and working on the fields, them doing most of the work, I'll admit, because I was dressed for the night, but they joked that without that work, we would not be playing this week. But with that work, with that financial commitment and the work done on the fields, we now are able to do what we need to do and are on schedule and planning to play our scheduled games both Wednesday and Thursday. So again, thank you for that support. And I don't know if you have any questions or anything you'd like to talk about, but thank you again for allowing me some time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up, we have items under, I'm sorry.
We have a video to show.
Oh,
Sports video.
I'm sorry.
I didn't tell Chris that, sorry. Hey, we're gonna
Just throw stuff out there.
Stay tuned for the sports video.
Good work. Be safe. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. How are we looking as far as for participation on spring sports? Sorry, I should have asked you before you sat down. Just thought about it.
Because I knew you were gonna ask that, I counted 119 total before I came over tonight,
Okay.
just out of curiosity, so. Right on that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, now we're going to shift over to items under study. Mr. Leach.
Yes, this is that time of the year to review the annual Perkins Plan. So you have that at your seats and on board docs. Also included this year is the comprehensive local needs assessment. That's essentially an internal audit that we do every 2 years for the CTE program. You'll see some themes in that. One is staffing. As you've noticed, we've had a lot of turnover in our CTE department. And when the staff turns over, obviously that changes with student interest as well. So that is evident in that CLNA is what they call it. So something else that you'll notice in there is that we don't get a whole lot of money for our Perkins Plan. We get $7,360.93. And the funding structure for that, it's broken into some money for professional development for our special populations, and then for Zello, which is our academic and career planning tool. And that tool is used pre-K through, or basically K through 12. Our counselors love it. I think our students love it. If you're able to attend the Wax Museum last Friday, all of our students use that to identify their careers. So it's definitely being used, and our hope is that parents now will have access to it before the end of the school year, so they can kind of see those same things that the students are seeing. One area that we do have a downfall in our data is the non-traditional program concentration. And what that means is some of our courses are mainly identified for females or for males. And the non-traditional is, for instance, for aerospace technology, it would be females taking that class. Or like we have now coming up, some of our family and consumer science classes would be predominantly for females. It would be males taking those classes. So right now, I think we're at 8% of our population fits into those non-traditional. I don't know many school divisions that meet that number. It's like 35%, but that's just something that, so you understand what that data shows. Last year we had 2 students in aerospace that would have fit that non-traditional program. So, not that we get dinged for anything like that, but it's
Oh,
just.
okay, I was gonna say, what happens if you don't?
I
Nothing.
haven't noticed anything in the past 3 or 4 years. So
Okay.
I'm not sure, but, we are gonna do something a little different this year, is the way we code it. So we're gonna include all of those students in exploratory classes. For instance, keyboarding is, if you're a male taking keyboarding, then you would fit into that non-traditional program. So we're going to be able to, we're gonna use those students as part of that.
Really? Men don't type.
You guys can't type.
Okay.
I don't know what the formula is to determine what students go into that.
You
but-
type like Risa, just.
Yep. So,
Interesting, okay.
Yeah, that's the Perkins Plan. You feel free to read it, and then I would hope that next month we can approve it and get it signed off and sent. So,
Any questions from anybody on the Perkins Plan? Okay. Next up, Ms. Roach, Special Education Annual Plan.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I say a special thank you to Mr. Snyder for coming and speaking on behalf of special education, and part of what he was speaking about in terms of funding goes hand in hand in what we're going to talk about tonight. So, get started. Our special education annual plan is a budgetary application. It includes Part B 611 and 619 funds. That funding is for school age and for preschool programs. So you have the full plan in front of you, and this is just the highlights. And that's for your review. Our maintenance of effort is the division's proposed budget based on the allocation, and that factors in the number of special education students that we have and other fiscal factors. And Miss Lena Muse is our expert in that area, so I lean on her a lot for some of those things, and she helps to draft that budget for us. And it's really based on what the state allots for us. So as Mr. Snyder was alluding to, we provide the public an opportunity to come and view the budget and provide input. There's a 2-week required window that we open that up to the public to come and view. And so the numbers that you'll see is part of what that is. We are very fortunate here in West Point to have a lot of other local funding support. So the application was reviewed by the Special Education Advisory Committee on February the 5th. That's also a requirement in terms of pushing that budget forward. And again, the plan was available for public review and comment February the 17th through the 27th. And I'm so appreciative to Mr. Snyder and his wife for taking the time to come in and go over that and provide feedback. So highlights, the budget that you see is based on allotments from the 25-26 allocation. The 26-27 numbers are not released. They have not been released, and so when that happens, we just make an amendment and we'll use those numbers. So we were able to implement the 24-25 SPED annual plan with no issues. And we have no barriers to implementing the 26-27 plan. We do not have any requirements for a set-aside. We were not identified as having any issues related to over-identifying students with disabilities. So when we submitted our indicators and things, when they looked at our information, we didn't have any red flags. So we are not required to set aside 15% of our funding for anything related to that. When we do our December 1 count, which is when the state looks at our information and our data, they look for any homeschooled or private schooled students that we have, and if we have any, then we're required to set a certain amount aside for those students. And as you know, we don't have any private schools within the geographic boundaries of West Point, but homeschooled students are also able to access services. Not to the same level as if they were enrolled in our public school, but they are allowed to access some level of service from us. And according to our data as of this last December, we did not have any students receiving special education services. So we're not required in our budget this year to set aside any money for those students. We don't have any local or regional jails that lie within our boundaries, so we never have to worry about that set aside amount. So for our school age allocation, we use that to go towards partial salaries and benefits for 4 full-time positions. And that's 3 special education teachers and 1 special education paraprofessional. And you can see that is approximately $187,000, and that's what we receive from the state. And then our 619 allotment is our preschool allotment. And so we use that towards our partial portion of our early childhood special education teacher's salary at approximately $4,000. And then we also use 600, approximately a little over 600, for our instructional materials for that classroom. So our preschool teacher assesses what she needs for that classroom, and she sends us. And usually it's things like assistive technology, adaptive materials for them to be able to strengthen their fine motor skills, gross motor skills, things like that. She also is able to access building funds that all other teachers are able to do too, for things like materials and other things for like construction paper and things. So this is specifically related to what she would need for specially designed instruction. But yeah, it's not a lot. But we are very, very thankful for the board's support and for the division's support. We're very lucky here in West Point. This is just an update of some of the community events that we have here. We have been continuing to run our community child find screening clinics. September the 27th and March the 14th were the dates. We have had low participation in those events, so I have a meeting every year, twice a year actually, with our screening committee, and we've just been throwing around some other options. That opportunity for parents to bring in their students for screening is available to parents anytime. They can just contact the school. We just like to provide an alternate option for Saturday, just because parents are working and we want to be here at a time that's available for them. But we've been doing that for 3 years and we have one parent, and actually I had to reschedule, so I'm getting ready to contact her to reschedule that. But yeah, we're just trying to find another way to reach people. So we're going to continue to kind of brainstorm that. But we did offer that this year. We have our Special Education Advisory Committee that meets, that's open to the public, that's in person and virtual. People can just log on, there's no password requirement, they can log on and be part of that meeting. We also have our annual homeschool / private school meeting, which is held annually. February the 5th was the day that we held that. And we have had no parent participation for that, but we don't have a large group of parents that we would be expecting for that. But it is a requirement, and so that's something that we hold annually. And then again, our requirement to have people be able to come and comment and give feedback on our budget. We run that for 2 weeks in February. And then we are having a parent event that's put on by PETSI, which is the Parent Educational Advocacy Training Center. And they're coming in May from 5 to 7 at the West Point Library. So we'll start to put out advertisements for that on social media. And I know that Ms. Sweeten is great about putting things out too through her social media. And that's just understanding special education. So we want to provide that opportunity to parents, and it just comes from a lens of somebody other than just the school system, and it provides them a way to get in contact with resources outside. And so those are some of the special education sort of directed events that are coming from the division. And then SEAC, we always want to bring feedback that our SEAC, we have great meetings. I believe we've grown so much in that way. I'm thankful to Mrs. Sweeten for her unwavering attendance, participation, and support of SEAC. We want to thank the board and the division for supporting special education in so many ways. You have listened to our request for staffing at the middle school, high school when we asked for a teacher. So thank you for that. You have funded a special education 504 coordinator at the middle school, high school, and worked that into the budget. We are very appreciative for that. That's been so helpful at the secondary building. You have funded a full-time school psychologist for us. That was last year, and she's been amazing. She supports in so many ways in terms of behavior support for students and for teams and for testing and just for guidance in terms of staff. So she's been amazing. Whenever we come and we just need additional support because of student needs or staffing needs, we're supported, so we thank you. We thank you for that. And materials and programs, when we ask, we never feel like we're unsupported. So thanks again for all of that. And then SEAC asked us to bring again what Mr. Snyder was talking about, which is the specialized program for students with exceptional learning and functional needs. We have a group of students that are just precious and adorable, and we love so much. And right now, some of them are being supported in other localities, and we'd like to bring them back as much as is possible. So we like to just continue conversations about that as we move forward. And then we also talked about another special education teaching position at the middle school, high school. Are there any questions, comments, suggestions?
How many students right now are you referring to for the specialized program? How many roughly? I'm not asking you for necessarily an exact count, but.
So we have right now about 4.
4. What would that require?
So it would
We need a
require-
special room, we need special equipment, special,
Yeah.
Yes.
right? Okay,
Yeah, so it would be a space.
okay,
And we would need a teacher.
okay.
And we'd need most likely 2 interventionists.
Mm-hmm.
And we would need, to be able to stock that classroom with materials and centers and assistive technology things. And then we really are envisioning that space to be very different than I think what we've seen in the past. We don't want that to be a restrictive place where our students go and spend all day in a certain classroom. We really want that to be a place where they go and get their specially designed instruction, but we want them to be part of the school community. I think we've seen that done in preschool. There's such a model for that right now. We have a specialized program right now in preschool where some of our students that do have intensive needs are being serviced, and they are pushing into our VPI classroom at multiple times of the day. They're with their peers. They're with their peers at recess. They're with their peers for specials. They're going with their peers for PE. They're blending in for rotations and centers, and they are being supported by staff. And to watch them grow by being around peer models is just, it's really so impactful. And then also watching their peers kind of take them along because they're part of their cohort now.
Right.
And so the preschool teacher, Mrs. Brown, when she sort of heard that we were talking about this program, reached out to me and Mrs. Goodwin and Amy individually and said, I am so excited to hear that you're even just starting a conversation about something like this. I'd love to be a part of it. And so we talked about, like, your classroom is such a model for this. We'd love to invite some people to come see what you're doing because it's just so different and special. And so she's very willing to just have you come and even see what's happening in preschool because it's really a great thing to see. And I know Mr. Jenkins has said so many times, like, we've been in the auditorium and you'll see the preschoolers and he's like, that's such a great program, we need to do more of that. So I think that would be a really cool thing to just kind of set up for you to even just be able to see how that maneuvers. And the elementary school is a great place to start.
And so are the 4 students elementary age students? They're
Yes.
all
Yeah, they're all elementary. So we'd be looking at setting up something that would be K through 5.
Okay, that was gonna be my next question.
Right.
Thank you. Okay. I'm sure I'll come up with some more questions later.
That's great. Any other questions?
That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You've heard my comments.
All right, next up we have action items. First on our list is item A, our expenditures and revenue reports. We have a motion to approve our expenditures and revenue reports.
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up, cafeteria expenditures. Do we have a motion to approve our cafeteria expenditures?
So moved.
Have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up is personnel recommendations. We have a chance to review all that. Do we have a motion to approve our personnel recommendations?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next up, Dr. Frazier, do you want to speak on this at all, or no?
On the
Budget.
Donation.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Next up is donations. I'll come back to you on that.
Have an answer ready.
Next up is donations. We have a motion to approve the donations.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now do you want to speak on this next item?
Yeah, so board members, in your packet, you have the revised budget that has been sent to the town and that was sent to you via email. That budget includes the reductions from the conversations that I had with the town. And so it is my recommendation that we approve, that the board approve the budget with those reductions so that can move forward to town council for their approval.
Any questions from anybody? Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the revised budget?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up, the WPPS weight room project.
So board members, in your packet, you have the drawings for the weight room project. As we discussed at the retreat in January, we discussed, instead of moving forward with a standalone building, we discussed the renovation and updating of the current space. And so you have that proposal in your packet. That proposal is coming in at $65,493. That does not include any painting that will need to be done to the space. We'll try to do that painting internally. But it would be my recommendation that you all approve that so we can move forward with updating our weight room space.
Just to clarify one thing, that's the equipment, the installation, flooring.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And so that includes flooring for the current weight room and then
Treatment room.
the current training space. And so all the new flooring would be all of that space now.
Figure out where we would move the athletic training.
That's what I was gonna
We are
ask,
still
yeah.
working on that.
Okay.
We're still working on these solid plans with them.
Okay.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve the weight room project as presented and discussed?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next up, student fees for the 2026-2027 school year. Not a lot of big changes. Does anybody have any questions? Do we have a motion to approve student fees for 26-27 year?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Last item on the list, policies B, D, D, and JM that were previously under study.
And just remember that there were no changes made to those policies. The board is just required to approve those policies each year.
We have a motion to approve those policies.
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, all of our action items. Dr. Frazier, do you have anything in information?
So for information, I want to start with the bags that you have at your seats. We were not able to attend the VSBA Eastern Region Art Forum. And so the Eastern Region Chair, Mrs. Frazier, sent those items to the West Point School Board because she wanted to make sure that our board was included.
Well, that was suspicious.
Also, we will be sending out a survey soon to be able to find a meeting time that works for the school board and town council as we continue with our conversations about growth and expansion. And so I will share that when we meet with the education committee on Thursday. And then after that, we'll send out some communication to see when board members might be available to meet.
Okay.
But I think that's all I have for information tonight.
Okay. Thank you so much. Future agenda items, we've already touched on most of those this evening. The special education annual plan, CTE Perkins plan, and Summer Academy 2026. Our next upcoming meeting is April 21st at 6 p.m. We have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.